Really, you are so insensitive and clueless. Can you hurry up and proceed with the divorce with Thomas? My in-laws always hurl abuse at me and make demands. And recently, the word divorce has started to come up frequently. Paula, you said something terrible and it made my mom cry. I care about my mom, so if you can't get along with her, I seriously think we should consider divorce. There's no way that mother-in-law cried because of me. Thomas casually lies about such clear falsehoods. I was fed up with it. Wait, why is everyone living in my apartment looking at me? You wouldn't think these are the same people who always talk about divorce. It's always the same pattern. They only bring up the word daughter-in-law when it suits them. Since you married into this family, you should take care of us, including finances and a place to live, because you are the daughter-in-law. I calmly responded to my mother-in-law's rude remarks. What? I'm not married? You know. Even they looked surprised. All three looked like deer caught in headlights, totally dumbstruck. What? What? I didn't say anything wrong because it was the truth. Meeting Thomas at a place where I was supposed to find happiness may have been my mistake. Was it fun for them to deceive someone like me? A naive and foolish woman in her 40s who mistook their feigned kindness for affection? They used me like a slave, demanding money. Had they ever seen such lowly figures reflected in the mirror? Their laughter sounded like the loud cackles of demons. I hope they continue laughing as they go to hell. I hope they suffer greatly. I will never forgive them. My name is Paula Miller, a 40-year-old housewife. Last year, in my late 30s, I married Thomas, whom I met at a matchmaking party. Invited by a friend of the same age, it was my first time attending such an event, and I was quite nervous. At the party, we had a short time frame to converse with each man. This was the perfect opportunity to showcase myself, but I was bad at talking. I struggled to find the right words and ended up wasting the time without making much of an impression. I might not be cut out for marriage. Just when I began to think this, the last person to appear before me was Thomas, who was the same age as me. Though not particularly handsome, his gentle demeanor and warm smile eased the tension that had built up. It's nerve-wracking to be here, isn't it? I'm not used to this either. Saying this, Thomas gave a shy smile. Other male participants were accustomed to these parties and would quickly throw questions, even within the limited time. I couldn't handle this well, and many men left sighing, moving on to the next woman. However, Thomas didn't bombard me with questions and listened attentively to my awkward words. I told him that I was homeschooled with few chances to interact with men and that my mother had raised me alone, expressing my desire to marry soon to reassure her. He listened to my story with a smile and nodded. For the first time at the very end, I felt comfortable. However, Thomas was popular, and during the free time, he was constantly surrounded by other female participants. There were many women here wanting to marry. I might miss my chance while I hesitate. Just as I gathered the courage to speak to Thomas, the bell rang to signal the end of free time. It's over. I didn't do anything. In the venue, those who became a couple received applause from everyone. As we were about to leave the venue, and while I was being comforted by the friend I attended the party with, an announcement came. Thomas and Paula Miller, you are a couple. Congratulations. Thinking it was my last chance, I had written Thomas's name under the man I was interested in. Surprisingly, Thomas had also written my name. Encouraged by my friend, who was even happier than I was, I headed to the stage. I want to spend more time with you, Thomas said, and I nodded vigorously. As applause filled the venue, we were officially established as a couple. Being considerate of the situation, my friend left first, and Thomas and I continued our conversation at a family restaurant. I also want to reassure my parents. Actually, I was also homeschooled, so I'm not sure how to interact with women. That's why, when I thought how similar we are, I became interested in you," Thomas said shyly. I grew even fonder of him as he spoke. Later, we talked about our favorite music and the activities we were involved in during our student days. Surprisingly, Thomas participated in theater in his high school days. I used to gather with friends who aspired to be actors, and we would film short dramas on our smartphones. Embarrassingly enough, I once had such dreams too. Thomas smiled shyly as he spoke. That was how Thomas and I met. From there, our relationship began. Since we met at a matchmaking party, our relationship progressed with marriage in mind. Soon after we started dating, I had the chance to meet Thomas's parents. Both were like Thomas, greeting me with kind and gentle smiles. I thought they might expect me to become a housewife once married, but neither Thomas nor his parents criticized the idea of me continuing to work. My mother lived far away, and I couldn't visit her often, but his parents were gracious and warmly told me not to worry about it. I learned that his parents had also pursued theater and had met in a drama troupe. Understanding that Thomas's aspiration to become an actor was influenced by them made sense. Looking back, I should have realized it then. I was completely oblivious to the fact that everything was just an act, and I proceeded to marry Thomas. That was the beginning of hell for me. I never had a father, and my mother worked tirelessly to raise me alone. Perhaps because of that, I strongly desired a warm family environment. After marrying Thomas, we rented a 2-bedroom apartment as our new home. Soon after moving in, my in-laws started to visit often, and we spent many enjoyable times together. As far as I can remember, it might have been the first time I ever felt the warmth of a family atmosphere. Not long after, when we visited Thomas's relatives to greet them, they seemed very surprised that he had gotten married. "You know I'm not good with women, right?" My relatives were worried about that too. Thomas said this when he returned home. My relatives, too, must have wished for my mother to find peace of mind as soon as possible. Thinking about it, I felt truly fortunate to have met Thomas and married him. When I called my mother to tell her we had submitted our marriage registration, I could hear her crying tears of joy on the other end of the phone, and I felt relieved that I could finally repay her kindness. Paula, thank you so much for marrying Thomas. From now on, we are family, so please treat us like your own parents. My mother-in-law said this kindly, and I felt like I was about to cry. With a kind husband and in-laws, and the ability to reassure my mother, I felt a deep sense of happiness. However, that happiness did not last long. About 3 months after officially marrying Thomas, when I returned from work, my in-laws were sitting on the sofa in the living room. I thought, that's unusual because my in-laws, who had been frequent visitors in the beginning, had been coming less and less recently. Thomas had not yet returned home, and they seemed to have been waiting for me, staring at me as I entered. "Hey, you're late. We're tired of waiting." When my father-in-law said this, I had a bad feeling. It was a slightly aggressive tone that had never been directed at me before. Really, coming home this late even though you're a wife, what a luxury. Have we spoiled you so much that you've become arrogant? I couldn't hide my surprise at these words. They were completely different from the kind words my mother-in-law had previously spoken. Moreover, it was just past 5 p.m., so it wasn't even that late. I couldn't understand why she would say such a thing. What are you dawdling for? Come here right now. We have something important to discuss. Following my mother-in-law's directive, I attempted to sit on an empty spot on the sofa. Hey, who gave you permission to sit? A wife isn't allowed to sit like that. I was